Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is good to be with you this evening. I'm Rabbi Heath Wattenmaker, joined by Cantor Jamie Spall and our senior rabbi, Jeremy Morrison. It is so wonderful to have so many of you here in person with us, and of course, a Shabbat Shalom to those of you watching from home or wherever your device may have taken you this evening. It brought you here to Beth Am, so we're so thrilled to have you on this Shabbat. Certainly lots to celebrate. I think front of my mind is the news about the vaccine being approved for 5 to 11-year-olds. Finally, very exciting news. This week in our Torah portion, we read Parshat Chayei Sarah, which means the life of Sarah. And in the very first line, Sarah dies. So not an portion incredibly focused on Sarah, but we get the name Chayei Sarah because the opening line reads, Vayihiyu Chayei Sarah me'a shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chayei Sarah. Sarah lived to be, often the translation says 127 years old, but literally the Hebrew says Sarah lived to be 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. Such was the span of Sarah's life. And there are all sorts of different commentaries and midrashim on why is it sort of separated out in this way. The Hebrew could read mea ve'esrim ve'shiva shanim, just 127 years. But why is it parsed out? And there are all sorts of different explanations for why the Torah states her lifespan in this way. And what occurs over and over again is that it sort of sections off the different stages of her life. And so I think as we're thinking about this portion and as we enter Shabbat, I think our question for our week perhaps is maybe how can we count our days, or how do we number our days, our years? How do we divide the different moments or areas of our life? I think in Jewish tradition, one way that we divide our year, our life, is from one Shabbat to the next. And so as we enter into Shabbat, we certainly, as I said, we have a lot to celebrate, lots to think about. And this week we are celebrating the bar mitzvah of Jesse Spain. So I'd like to call Jesse and his family, his mom and dad, Kevin and Christy, and his grandparents, Helen Spain and Sandy Gralnick, to lead us in candlelighting, which you can find on page 2 or 120.
Yes, why don't you just all come on up?
Yeah.
Come on.
They're coming. Come on in.
Yeah, just use that candle.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
So you guys can all stay up here if you want. Jesse's going to lead us in Kiddush, our blessing over the wine, on page 5 or 123. That's for you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, זכר לציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen. L'chaim. Well done,
Chaim,
Jesse.
Mazel Tov. Well done. Nicely done. Mazel Tov.
Who's this?
Also want to extend a special welcome to our 7th grade families who are here kind of kicking off the B'nai Mitzvah retreat. I know you're heading up to Newman tomorrow, but it's so nice to have you with us here tonight as well. We'll continue.
You know, some of us are here for the first time inside, and I just want you to know that the piano that's playing is in the chapel. If you guys look through the courtyard, you'll see Russell. You could wave to him; he'll see you too. So anyway, thank you, Russell. It sounds beautiful as always. So we do have our live accompanist, just in case you were wondering.
Oh yeah,
It's good. It's good.
it's good. Glad to have Russell here with us as well. We're on page 20 or 138. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 of Lecha Dodi.
Shabbat,
Page 28 or 146, we turn to our call to worship, our prayer that acknowledges the presence of our community, in that call and answer that we need a community in order to sing this prayer together. And whether you are here in person or joining us online, you are part of this community, and we acknowledge you and we welcome and are so thrilled to have you here. Page 28 or 146. Slide appearing in just a moment. This is our offering tonight in place of Ahavat Olam, sort of inspired by the themes of Ahavat Olam, an unending love. This song is, we are loved by an unending love.
We are loved.
Even
152. Words of the Shema.
Shema
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shem kevod malchuto leolam vaed. Please be seated. Next Shabbat, Ari Shepard and Bella Myers will become B'nai Mitzvah, and I want to invite them forward now to lead us in the Via Havta on page 36 or 154.
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמן. We join together in this song of breakthrough and of new beginnings. Micha Mocha, page 40 or 158.
Torah
ופדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
In an envelope marked personal, God addressed me a letter. In an envelope marked personal, I have given my answer. We continue now with Tefillah on page 46 or 164. Please rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaya kol atah rav le'hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechalkel chaim bechesed, mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot, u'midol melach, melech memit u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, ve'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
We continue privately through page 63. And when you have completed your prayer, please be seated. Page 60.
Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atam Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Ki Atam Melech Adon Lechol HaShalom. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Letov v'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה לשלומך. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
On Shabbat, our community is made up certainly of those who are here to celebrate, perhaps those who are also in mourning, perhaps those who are here because they're in search of strength from somewhere. And so as we turn to our prayer of healing, Misha Berach, we're reminded that sometimes that source of strength might be inside of ourselves. Sometimes it might be found in gathering as a community. Sometimes it's just somewhere beyond us. Perhaps our tradition calls it God, but maybe for some of us, it's just somewhere outside of us and we need to draw it in. And so we turn to our prayer for health and healing, our prayer for healing of refuat haguf, a healing of body, or refuat hanefesh, a healing of spirit and soul. regardless, a prayer for strength as well. And we're sending strength and healing to David Ben-Ami, Jerry Blum, Robert Kaplan, Fern Geschwind, Arlene Gilliland, Selena Glader, Hal Greenfield, Diana Guthaner, Leah Hallert Carrito, Dorothy Huppert, Moritz Huppert, Marvin Jones, Wendy Levine, Eshra Ozturk, Eileen Peak, Mrs. Gloria Pease, Rabbi Lori Phillips, Adel Razel, David Baruch Ben Simona, Donna Spanger, Nicole Gent Wickenheiser, and Kathy Zweibelman. Invite you, if you're thinking of someone, to share their names as well, here in person or wherever you are. Nisha Berach, our prayer for healing is in the middle of page 253 or 371. It's my honor this evening to welcome our special guest speaker, Dr. Lisa Miller, who is the New York Times best-selling author of The Spiritual Child and a professor in the clinical psychology program at the Teachers College at Columbia University. She is the founder and director of the Spirituality Mind-Body Institute, the first Ivy League graduate program and research institute in spirituality and psychology, and has held over a decade of joint appointments in the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University Medical School. Her innovative research has been widely published in more than 100 peer-reviewed articles in a number of leading journals. A graduate of Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania, where she earned her doctorate under the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, she has served as principal investigator on multiple grant-funded research studies. Dr. Miller spoke here at Beth Am about 5 years ago, and her talk then sparked lots of wonderful conversations about the value of our spiritual community, particularly among parents. I've also discovered in reaching out to a number of Beth Am congregants in the past couple of weeks that when talking about Dr. Miller's talk tonight, that she has a number of connections to many of our members, actually, friends, I think at least one who goes all the way back to high school, colleagues, collaborators, and many, many fans of her work. Her recent book, The Awakened Brain, talks about how difficult experiences can actually help to strengthen our resiliency, and finding a connection to spirituality and faith in those moments only make us stronger. Which may sound familiar if you were paying attention to my High Holiday sermon a year ago. If it's not familiar, then the archives are there, but tonight's talk will be wonderful and refreshing. It is absolutely my pleasure and a delight to welcome her back here to Beth Am. So wonderful to have you here on our Bima this evening.
Hello, I'm so grateful to be back. Can you hear me?
Let's see, is it on?
How about that? Can you
Yeah.
hear me now? Okay, good. It's wonderful to be back. I was here 5 years ago, and I felt immediately part of the community. This was a beautiful Shabbat. Thank you, Rabbi. I'm sharing with you today as a clinical scientist, as a Jew, as a mother, what is perhaps not surprising to you as people committed to Jewish life. But there is indeed a science that mirrors that which our tradition has known for thousands of years. So certainly by no means would I say science proves spiritual life. It needs no proof in that sense. Direct knowing is indeed a form of evidence. But science is, amongst the many forms of knowing, one form of perception that mirrors that which you may have known in your heart. I'm going to stand for you in spirit, but I just had a hip replacement, so I'm going to sit with you in body. So very often I hear people say, you know, I am very scientific. I don't believe in all that spirituality stuff. And then I'll hear other people say, I'm a deeply spiritual person. I don't care what science says. But it turns out that science and spirituality can go hand in hand. Science is a method. And it is really a very straightforward, rigorous method. The rollout is pretty straightforward. It is up to the scientists to take this lens, whether it's a microscope, a telescope, an MRI study, a genotyping study, take the lens and point it at a broad range of questions. But only really at the end of the 20th century did scientists start to ask, were they so inspired to wonder, what might be the impact of human lived spirituality on the rest of our lives? And it turns out that in all the clinical and social sciences, there's nothing that we have found as profoundly transforming of our lives as a strong personal spirituality. Round up the usual suspects. Is it parenting? Is it education? Is it this neighborhood or that? What is it that makes life good? And by a factor of 3 to 4-fold, there is nothing that compares to the impact of spiritual life. How much so? Well, we're honoring the B'nai Mitzvah launch and Jesse's Bar Mitzvah, Mazel Tov. It's beautiful. It turns out that science has a lot to say about the path of our spiritual life. The first is that every single one of us on earth is born with an innate capacity for spiritual life. We know this in science through the lens of twin studies. Twins raised together, twins raised apart, factor out their commonality as a function of genes and environment. Temperament, we all who have seen babies know that temperament is part hardwired. It's half hardwired, half environmentally molded. We can soothe a colicky baby, right? Sometimes. My center child, who asked to go by center child, was up for 18 months, and indeed I soothed her. The capacity through which we experience spiritual life is 1/3 innate and 2/3 environmentally formed. How is it formed? Right here now. Right here now. And never more is it more significant than in a surge, a biological clock, if you will, that goes off at puberty. We've known this in our tradition a long time. With puberty, there's a 50% increase in the heritable contribution, which means from the inside out, there is, ready or not, whether or not anyone told you, a hunger for transcendence, a questioning, what is my purpose? Actually, what is the purpose written into life itself? The quest to know ultimate significance, the existential longing, we are hardwired with puberty, and it only becomes more intense from 15 to 18 all the way to our early 20s. So what you are doing here, B'nai Mitzvah, is the most important thing you could possibly do onto your adult development. Judaism got ahead of the question. They said, right here at the advent of puberty, we will show you a path. We will open the door, and it is yours for the rest of your life. When you wonder, what is my meaning? What is my purpose? What is the meaning, the purpose? You know how to pray. You know how to read. You know how to join in community to find what might have been the question of the head has an answer in the heart. Judaism got ahead of the game. And so too, we know through the lens of science that when we strengthen the spiritual core, we are 80% less likely to become addicted. American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, peer review, it is not an opinion, it is a fact on a national sample. 80% less likely to become addicted. 60% less likely to have major depression. Everyone gets depressed, but the downward spiral is cut off by a spiritual response to suffering. Judaism teaches us a lot, that where there's light, there's struggle, and where there's struggle, there's light. And science actually has mirrored that too. We've looked through MRI studies and seen that when we practice a spiritual response to suffering, the Kaddish, when we come together in love and care for each other when we're ill, bringing what that song was so beautifully about that you shared, love, love, love everywhere. We actually strengthen regions of the brain, the parietal, occipital, and precuneus. We have greater cortical thickness, processing power in these regions of perception, reflection, orientation, that are the very same regions that are not thick and strong, but thin when there is recurrent major depression. A spiritual response to suffering builds the muscle so that bar mitzvah and b'nai mitzvah class, what you're doing here now strengthens you the rest of your life so that you know how to turn to God, so that you know how to turn to your Jewish community, so that you can turn to prayer in the most difficult moments of your life. Lavador vador. We don't make the fire, but we carry it. Look who surrounds you, Jesse. It's so beautiful. Sorry, I'm not part of your family, but I feel this love. Lavador vador. It turns out that in forming the spiritual core, it is not by picking up a book when we're 20, but it's actually in the lived spirituality coming and going in our lives. The mezuzah on the door, the modeling of our parents, and the forming of the spiritual child, there's an equal contribution of praying out loud by our parents' side, reading sacred text by our parents' side, transparency from our parents. You know, I had a hard time too, and I didn't know if there was any meaning in life. But then I felt God's presence, but then I saw the light in the leaves, but then you were born. And I knew there was something more. Right? Transparency is half from our parents, and the other half, not that they just talk the walk, but that they walk the walk. Lived Jewish values, spiritual values. So let's get back to the brain. Right? In the Awakened Brain, I share that no matter what faith tradition one is from, there's the same neuroseat of transcendent awareness. We know this through the Spirituality Mind-Body Institute, and our colleagues at Yale looked at people from all different traditions, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Catholics, and no matter what tradition we're from, when we're in a state of deep connection to God, the same neural correlates run in the functional MRI, the movie camera MRI tracking blood flow. What are they? There are 4. The first is that we quiet the racket. The next is that just as we were held as children in our parents' arms, the bonding network is engaged, and we perceive that we are held by life itself, by God. We move from a top-down to a bottom-up, from a dorsal to a ventral attention network where we see that life is full. And finally, the parietal puts in and out hard boundaries so that we know that as isolated and lonely and as real as loneliness can feel, we are part of a deeper oneness, the family of life. So when our innate, 1/3 heritable, 2/3 formed, awakened brain is engaged and we build that muscle, we know the rest of our lives, what you did here today, that we are loved, that we are held and guided, and that we are never alone. It is not a theory, it is not a belief, it is a perception. So I want to congratulate you, Mazel Tov. I want to say to the parents of the B'nai Mitzvah, you've done the best thing a parent can possibly do, which is build the spiritual core, strengthen the awakened brain, and no matter what comes, your child will always be prepared. Some people say the past 18 months, it's been a loss, it's been a downtime, it's been a dark hole. But actually, the decades ahead, we don't know what they hold. And perhaps the most powerful education our children can have is how to lean into flux, how to lean into uncertainty and the unwanted, how to bring forward the deep spiritual awareness through which we don't control life and we're not makers of our paths, but we are in deep dynamic relationship with the spirit in and through life, and we discover our paths. And that is perhaps the greatest gift that you give your children, the B'nai Mitzvah class. Thank you for including me tonight.
Lisa, what are you doing next week? I kept thinking as you were speaking that I think scientists can make the best clergy. And we all are sort of saying the same things. And I think oftentimes scientists make the best rabbis for the Jews. So if you're available, please come back. It's a complete moment of serendipity that this all worked out. And so thank you for making time and being with us this evening. That was remarkable. And the book's on, you can buy the book at Amazon. So I want to recommend that too. We continue now with the Aleinu on page 282. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated. The Kaddish is on page 294. And this past Wednesday, October 27th, we marked the 3rd anniversary of the mass shooting at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. And our setting for Kaddish this evening is a poem written by Alden Solovoy on the day of the shooting in 2018. It's entitled Tree of Life, Pittsburgh. Tree of Life, revive our souls, enrich our days, entreating your blessings. O God of peace, fill our hearts with comfort, letting your Torah shine in the fullness of our love. Faith in you, our God, eternal source of blessings. Praying for healing in the depths of despair, thanking God for the survivors, thanking God for the first responders, sorrow crushing our hearts, bereaved beyond belief, united in our love, returning to you in faith, God of Israel, healer of generations. Tree of Life, Redeemer of Israel, enliven this moment with healing, enliven this moment with hope. O Rock of Israel, forget not the Jews of Pittsburgh. Let your love flow in the days ahead for justice and peace everlasting. And we remember at this time those of our congregation and of its families who have died during the past week. Alan Jackman, brother of Jay Jackman, uncle of Rashi Jackman. Ann Tukey Harrison, sister-in-law of Esther Delson, aunt of Beth, Leah, and Nathan Delson. We add to their names the names of those for whom we observe Shaloshim, the traditional 30-day period of mourning. Jack Furness, Jerry Kelly, Ellen Mendelson, Sarah Schieber, Willie Haberly, Linda Heath, and Irving Holtzberg. And we add to their names the names of those for whom their yard sites are commemorated this week. Sherry Abrams, Isidore Allen, Roz Beitler, Rosetta Berman, Stephen Block, Hugo Block, Susan Brunner, Lena Cohen, Melvin DeHovitz, Harry Drucker, Barry Frank, John Firth, Edward Gobety, George Goodman, Ruth Adler Graham, Leon Groen, Monroe Hartfield, Leonard Herman, Ruth Horowitz, Charlotte Huckatall, Francis Isaacs, Joanne Jacobs, Sam Kabak, Harold Kieser, Sidney Cohn, Robert Kramer, Lillian Kramer, Dr. Philip R. Lee, Joanne Levy, Beatrice Lewis, Henry Lindauer, Hilda Lipton, Susan Rockwood, Ruth Lowenberg, Paula Mandel, Anna Mirovich, Jamie Morris, Daria Chages Naftalin, Moshe Nisim, Sarah J. Overstreet, Jay Ozagoski, Catalina Pelk, Jeff Person, Joshua Rachmimov, Alyssa Rosen, Charles Rosenberg, Nira Roston, Henry Rosdell, Hannah Rosenzweig, Dennis Schreck, William Schwartz, Alicia Seeger, Zella Silverman, Harry Simon, Gene Smith, George Sobel, Yvonne Steinfeld, Rose Sweetwine, Rosalind Targ, Samuel Tovey, Nechama Tovey, Brent Triger, Magda Wiesel, Sam Weiss, Anna Yakowitz. And we add to their names the names of the 11 individuals who were murdered on October 27th, 2018 in Pittsburgh. Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, brothers Cecil Rosenthal and David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon and her husband Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, and Irvin Younger. Zichronam Livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. And now we stand with you and we recite these words together. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'mechon, uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'meru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, V'tadar v'talev v'talal shemei dekudesha berichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'yimeru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imeru, amen. Before we conclude our service, I want to remind you that we continue to collect tzedakah for Tabeka, a nonprofit organization in Israel that supports Ethiopian Jews there and helps that community respond to challenges faced from racism and discrimination to the struggle to achieve equality before the law, to make Israel a more just society, is also a focus of this organization. The tzedakah box is right in the back. I'm pretty sure, you know what we ultimately need is Apple Pay for this purpose. But in any case, unburden yourselves if you have a little money on the way out. And you also can make contributions through our website. We conclude our service tonight with the singing of Adonai Oz on page 360 or 664.
Adonai Oz,
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful Shabbat, a wonderful weekend. There's going to be more rain on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So enjoy this weather and take good care.
Shabbat Shalom.